Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Of course, I have been in the middle of my Sleepaway camp movie reviews. Of course, this set here has the first three films and the disc production footage I talked about yesterday in a separate video for part 4, which was never completed. So technically, I made a video, as I said about this, discussing that, how there is no part 4, but in my previous reviews for Sleepaway Camp movies, I said I was going to review all 5 movies, not knowing that there is not technically a part 4 called The Survivor. So I had to make a video yesterday to rant and ramble about that and just let you know I'm an idiot. I didn't read the disc that said production footage only. I had to skip to the next film, which is the real part 4, and that is the original director who made the original film, who created the series, who wrote and directed the original film. He got the rights back years ago, and in 2008, he came around and made a new sequel. But it was kind of like ignoring part 2 and part 3, sort of kind of. This film references those sometimes, but not like in a canonical way, just like kills and certain things referenced to part 2 and part 3. But this supposedly kind of ignores part 1 or part 2 and part 3 as a direct sequel to part 1, and this film is called Return to Sleepaway Camp. I really like the cover on this film. I bought this quite a while back, and this is the first time I saw it, but I do have some caveats to my review to give you a heads up on. The ending. There's a big twist in here I'm not going to spoil for you at all. I will not spoil the ending for you. There are some disappointing things about this movie. I do want to put that first and foremost and just tell you that because I think it's important. For me, I was expecting kind of like the original Sleepaway Camp, which people had ruined that ending for me. I had seen it on a TV show called Bravo's Top 100 Scariest Movie Moments when I was a kid, and it spoiled a lot of really great scares in some really great movies and a lot of great endings to movies. I won't spoil the ending of Sleepaway Camp, the original, if you haven't seen it, but I will tell you this, that is like the big thing people talk about with that film is the ending, the twist, the reveals, all of that stuff, and it's fantastic for it. The rest of the film, though, the first time I saw it back in 2018, I had a back injury. I watched the first 3 films back to back, did not have this one or access to it, so I didn't see it yet. And that first movie's ending, as great as it is, the rest of the film surrounding it is really enthralling too and really fun. It just feels like a 1983 film, which it was. But it's really engaging, it was really enjoyable, and it still is to this day. Parts 2 and 3 are very comedy-focused. They take place like 8 years after that original movie, and I thought that was really cool. I thought the direction they chose was very smart, and 3 was even better than part 2 was, which usually as you have a sequel go along, the previous sequel is better than the newest sequel. That's usually how it goes. Some series vary on that. Halloween varies on that. Friday the 13th, to me, varies on that, depending on what era of Friday the 13th we're talking about. Now, this is the thing. This movie's kind of disappointing. I went into it already knowing, because of a clip that I saw years ago that I thought was part of part 2 and part 3, it was not, a clip that revealed the ending of the movie. So I had the big twist in this movie ruined for me. The difference between Return to Sleepaway Camp, even though it's made by the same guy, is that the surprise ending here is nice if you genuinely cannot see it coming. If you can't see it coming, I think you'll really like it. However, unlike the original film, where there's so much around that amazing ending that really makes that film fun to watch, this film doesn't really have that. Not that I hated it at all. If I'm being honest with you, it might be my least favorite of all of the 4 films in total. But with that being said, I don't hate the movie. It feels like a guy who made 1980s slasher films made this movie, just using better cameras. If this was filmed with the graininess, of old classical cameras, I don't think this film would be hated the way it typically is. This is a very low-rated film, probably the lowest rated of all the films in the franchise. And I understand why on one hand. Again, I kind of agree with it on one hand. But for me, it's not a complete loss. It's just kind of a rough movie. Not a bad movie, just a rough movie. It has some rough edges to it as a slasher film, as a horror movie, and certain things that could have been changed and manipulated to make a better movie really could have made this overall better. One thing I do think is super interesting, all of these films, no matter when they came out, in the 80s or even now in 2008 with this film, they all managed to hit right at 120 minutes, or an hour and 20 minutes. And I think that is absolutely incredible. That is something that films need to bring back. I think Hollywood's nuts to keep making everything 2 to 3 hours long. Not every movie needs to be that. Not every biopic, whatever you want to call it, needs to be that. I think this is a great example of a film that was less self-indulgent by not being like 2 hours long, which in 2008 was really kind of kicked off with like Iron Man, Dark Knight. Those films kind of really pushed that idea of having 2 and 2.5 hour long superhero movies, and that had not really been a thing previous to that. But anyway, getting back to Return to Sleepaway Camp. What is this movie about? Well, aside from ignoring part 2 and part 3, kind of, sort of, we have the ideas, and I'm going to have to kind of ruin that original movie's ending just a little bit to really get my point on what I'm talking about. Angela has been locked away all of these years, supposedly. Not been out at all. And we have a new camp that has opened up where the original camp used to be. It has a new name. I think it's like Manabi? I don't know how to say the name. I might even get it wrong, as a matter of fact, but who cares? At this camp, we follow a young man who irritates the shit out of me. His name is Alan. He is a fat kid. I can say that because I've always been a fat kid. I'm a fat kid. What do you want me to tell you? This kid is like a 17, 18-year-old playing like a 13-year-old, you know? A lot of the extras are a lot older than they are. A lot of the lead stars in the film that are teens and counselors are way older than they're supposed to be. There's a lot of extras in this film, which surprised me for the kind of budget it has. It's clearly a lower budget, more indie slasher, which is nice. I kind of like that quaint feel of a lot of these types of things. Some films step up, you know, the basis for the standard, if you will, like Art the Clown movies, Terrifier 1 and 2. This, not so much. This, not so much. But this is probably like a Kickstarter project or something. I don't know. This film's getting harder and harder to find, by the way. It took me a little while to find it when I finally got it. And my copy is in good condition. I still had issues with my disc, just so you know. Anyway, we follow a kid who irritates the shit out of me. His name is Alan. Alan is not only a fat kid, but he's also like he's what I call nowadays, which is very common. It's like 2008 predicted this coming. We have a professional victim here, folks. The type who are going to get offended by everything, but they're also bullies. The type that you see all over Twitter, you see all over Reddit, you see them everywhere. They are pathetic pieces of humankind. And Alan is one of those types. So immediately as I watched this film, the film on one hand sometimes wants you to feel bad for him, and on other hands, it recognizes that he's a piece of shit, that he is always doing shit to other people, and then running away when he gets beat up backward, and complaining about people bullying him. I hate people like that. To make him the main character of this film, in a very Goosebumps-like feeling of a movie, is a bad choice. It's just a bad choice all around. This is a character that should have been a side character. Look, when I watch Star Wars, as much as I love it, Leia, Han, Vader, as much as I love them, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, they're not the main characters. Luke is. You can argue they're the main cast, but they aren't the main characters. Luke really is to me. Maybe as the sequels progress, it kind of gets a little bit, debatable on Empire and Return and all of that. But you don't make this kid, Alan, the professional victim, the main character. No one can sympathize with this kid. Not that you always have to sympathize with your main character, but to me it makes it more engaging and a better movie when you can, like the original Sleepaway Camp. So Angela's apparently been locked away for a very long time, and there's not really much to say about whoever would play her, Felissa Rose is great in the original film, and there's not really much to be said about Felissa. So the murders start to happen at this camp again. They start to believe maybe it's because the name of the camp just changed, Now, Ronnie from the original film is back here. I loved seeing him. He was so much fun again. Dude's still in great shape to this day. He has to be like in his 60s. He looks fantastic. I guess by this point he was in his 50s or 60s, probably in his 70s now. But the dude is so lovable. I just love the guy. I think he's such a sweet man. And he's great here, too, as kind of the lead counselor guy again. Now, again, following Alan, the other kids around him have really nothing going for them either, in the sense of like their personalities, their traits, any of that kind of stuff. They really don't have much character to them. Some are just scummy rich kids that are bullies. Some are kids like Alan. Mainly Alan is Alan. And I know this sounds boring, because it kind of is. If I'm being honest with you, the film is kind of boring. It's just kind of not really a whole lot happening here. But as a slasher movie, I enjoyed watching, because I think the kills, as poor as they kind of look sometimes, it's not the worst thing ever. If I'm being honest with you, it's not the worst thing ever. It is not like Child's Play remake quality. It's not even like Halloween remake quality. It's not even up to like par with Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 quality for the kills and for the practical effects they made for those movies, mainly for 2. 3 doesn't have as much. But Return to Sleepaway Camp, to me, is not a complete loss. It has some fun here and there. There's a lot of attempted humor and jokes in the writing, and it sucks. It sucks so bad. One of the things Alan is always screaming at people before he runs away after getting beat up for being a bully, he will scream, "Your ass stinks." What? Why do you keep saying that throughout this entire film? Why are you doing that? It's bad. And I guess a lot of people in the film at some point decide that they think that he might be a killer of some sort, because it always seems to be the people that bully him, like staff at the camp, that get killed after they do something to him. Now, Alan also has an obsession with frogs. Let me tell you this before I get to the rest of the cast and cameos and stuff we have. The frog thing. I fucking hate frogs. I do not like them. They creep me out. They're disgusting and gross and sick. I don't like the big, bulbous, big-bellied ones they have in this movie. They creep me out. They're gross. There are some things in this movie involving frogs that I will never unsee. There are things that I didn't know what I was looking at first, and then the film explained it, and I was truly mortified. I will never unsee some of the things I saw in this movie, like the frog scene. That, to me, is the most gruesome shit in the entirety of Return to Sleepaway Camp. Just so you know, in case you're looking for gross out stuff, that is in here 1000% for that particular moment. It really got to me. Still makes me cringe thinking about it. I've got a chill up my spine right now. I'm doing the dance and everything for it. Moving along, though, let's talk about some of the other cameos we have in here. I briefly mentioned Felissa Rose. There is a very small part to this movie dedicated to her, and I like that a lot. It should have been better executed. It's kind of like a nice throwback to a little bit of the old jokes in this film that tie to the original movie and a cop having a fake mustache. I thought that was kind of cool. There's some nice things tying to that I really enjoyed, but the Felissa Rose thing was kind of cool. I like that. I just wish, I wish there was better execution on it, if I could say that. Anyway, moving along, there are some other people here. A comedian that I know of that's on Joe Rogan all the time. Joey Diaz is in this. Joey Diaz. When I saw him show up, I was like, Joey Diaz is in this movie. It was very strange. But Joey is fun. He has like this, he's like the, I guess the owner of the camp. I don't know what he is. He's got like a little parrot bird thing, whatever they're called. I don't know. And it gets scared and the little white thing on its head shoots up. I don't know. It's one of those types of birds. It's cute. But Joey Diaz is in this. He doesn't do much, but he's fun. You know, I like Joey. And then we have my boy, Isaac Hayes, I believe is the entire name. I always mess up people's names. I think Isaac Hayes is the name of this guy. However, if you don't happen to know who Isaac Hayes is, he plays a character in here just like he played on another thing called Chef. Yes, Isaac Hayes, if you happen to not know who he is, he played Chef on South Park years ago. He is the guy that would be like, "Hello there, children." Like, he was that guy. And they even went as far as to have him in this movie with a red shirt on. And he sounds just like Chef, as always. I love Isaac Hayes. He's a genius comedian, and I loved when he was on South Park, dude. It was so good to see his name show up in the credits at the beginning of this film, and then to see him in the movie. He was just fun. I love the guy. I miss Chef being on South Park. I wish Isaac Hayes would come back for like a cameo or something there. I'm a big South Park guy, in case you don't know. But anyway, it was cool to see both of them. Jonathan Tiersten, who played Ricky in the original film, comes back for a very small role too. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was really nice. The film is not so much creative like Part 2 and Part 3 were, as sequels that probably should have never existed. I don't think this one should have existed either, if I'm being honest with you. It's really not all that engaging. Again, it's kind of dull. I didn't hate watching it, if that makes sense. I mean, you can have a boring movie that is nice to look at and nicely shot, not that this is, but something that is mildly interesting. You're curious the directions it'll go. But again, unlike the original film, even though I had the ending of that movie and this movie spoiled, the original movie has so much more going for it. So much more charm and fun and beauty to it in the way it's shot and everything, compared to something like this. There is no 80s charm to this, even though there's clearly behind the camera somebody that had some 80s charm working on a classic that could have made something really special out of this. I wish this movie had been made back in the day. if this had been made in part 2 or part 3 instead of part 2 and part 3, even though I think those are for sure better than this, I think it could have been made better. I really do. But a lot of this focus on that kid Alan, on the kids that are bullying him, that he's bullying back, his crushes and stuff, it takes up so much time in this movie that just wastes your time. It feels like the movie had to fluff itself out just a little bit to really make that hour and 20 mark. And I feel like, again, you don't put people like Alan as the main protagonist of a film. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. The film is not incredibly shot or anything. The cinematography is not great by any means. The practical effects I briefly touched on, they're not great. There's a little bit of a touch and hint of CGI here and there, but not really much. There are some practical effects and some makeup effects that look really good, and then there are some makeup effects, one in particular that you probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie, that looks like shit sometimes, depending on the angle that we're shooting a person from. It's... I don't know. There's some things like the twist at the end of the movie that it just doesn't work. It could work, but it doesn't work here with the execution of it so silly-like, you know? All that being said, though, let's talk about the music. There's a lot of music in this movie, but it's like low-rent, like local garage band type music, and some of it's just like filler royalty-free shit in the background. The worst offender of this is the opening credits song, which to me, the Sleepaway Camp films have always had good music when they had music in them. The second two movies, 2 and 3, didn't have much music. But this one has like cheesy like shit that you would hear like people promoting their own music on YouTube comment sections type of music. It's not good. The opening credits song here is probably the worst of the entire series. It's embarrassingly bad. I don't know. It's pretty rough. A lot of the music, if not all of the music, is bad in the film. A lot of it is so cheesy and corny. And I know the 80s had that too, but when the opening song to this movie is like a low-rent rock band that are just saying Sleepaway Camp a whole lot in a very unique way, it doesn't interest me. It's really dumb. That's just my opinion on it. Maybe it's a controversial opinion, I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. All that being said, though, Return to Sleepaway Camp is not a complete loss. It's a little bit of a dull mess. I don't think I would sit through this again right now, but it's got some problems. It's got some big old problems. I would be curious about how they got everybody to come into this, to be the people involved here, like Isaac Hayes, for example. That's surprising to me that people like that came in here. I guess the director has a bond with them. I don't know. Shit. Let me try it again. Return to Sleepaway Camp is not a complete loss, but it's definitely not a home run by any means. It's a little bit of a mess, if I'm being honest with you. And I wish it was better. I wanted it to be better. I'm surprised it's even rated R. I don't even think there was any nudity in this movie. Yeah. Why is this rated R? There's some interesting gore, and that's about it, but it's not even good-looking gore. It's interesting gore, like how somebody died here or there. And again, a lot of the references within the kills are references to previous kills in previous movies, which is kind of nice, to not just ignore Part 2 and Part 3 entirely. With that being said, though, Return to Sleepaway Camp, probably the weakest of the series, in my personal opinion. Not a wonderful thing, if I'm being honest with you. But if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I'd give it like a 2 out of 5 stars. It's not a complete loss, once again, but it's definitely not one for the books, if you will. With that being said, though, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this review, probably jump into either doing my ranking now or wait till tomorrow to do my ranking video for you guys. I'll find out, though. I'll probably just wait till tomorrow. But we'll see. Anyway, thank you all for watching. God bless you guys. I really appreciate you watching. And thank you for being here. 2 out of 5 stars for Return to Sleepaway Camp. Again, the weakest of the series, in my opinion. Which, who cares, you know? Anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are about the entire series down in the comment section down below, or you can wait till the ranking video immediately after this video. We'll see what happens and what you think. I'd love to hear it all down below. Anyway, thank you guys. God bless you guys, and goodbye.